All right, first of all, welcome. My name is Craig Grant. I'm your Geek Tour Guide for the next hour. We're going to walk you through all the scary parts of technology, more importantly, how to solve it, make sure your business isn't in danger because of technology. And by the way, I'm sure you guys are aware if you've been to any other sessions. All you have to do, there is a note packet in this session in the app for the conference, okay, just like there is all the others. But I'm also going to give you a link in a second where you can get way more than just the note packet, okay? What I do for all my students, just so you know, is all you got to do is go there, rti.us/cg event, name and email address is all you got to do to sign in, and that will instantly send you to a page where you can download the entire class, every single slide. In fact, we're just doing a 1-hour version right now, okay? I have a half and a full day version of this topic, so you can download all of it if you really want to. And that page it'll send you to has all my classes, not just this one. So if you want to go download my class on apps or whatever, you're more than welcome to do so, okay? And by the way, for any of you guys who haven't been to any of my sessions yet, okay, either here or around the country, I always give my students a quick little heads up, okay? Again, my name is Craig Grant. I'm with RETI, the Real Estate Technology Institute, and I am a national speaker. I'm all over the country every day teaching realtors everything there is about technology, marketing, data security, and so on. So if there's a geeky topic, I cover it, okay? There's no question I'm definitely a geek and a very, very proud geek. But I would say not to worry, this isn't gonna be an hour of geekiness because my job is to strip all the geekiness out of the topic and make it as easy as possible to understand. Because I guarantee most of you guys in this room, the average realtor, is not a geek, and I'm sure most of you guys don't even like technology. And the stuff we're about to start talking about, I guarantee you guys don't like. We're gonna talk about stuff like viruses and wire transfer fraud and all this stuff that's going on in this business that most of you guys probably have no idea how it works or what's going on. So we're not gonna use any weird geeky words. We'll explain it the way you get it, and then also realize you can download the entire slide deck, okay? So here are the scary, scary facts, okay? Every single day, there's a new million pieces of viruses and malware that hit the internet. And tomorrow will be another new million. And the day after that, another million. So we're not talking just a million pieces of viruses on the internet. Every day there's another new million pieces, okay? This is a never-ending battle. In fact, I do this a lot of times where I'm allowed to. I'll put up a site like North Corp up on the screen just to terrify the crowd to kind of set the stage because it literally looks like war games. You can see viruses being spread from all over the world, where they're going to, who they're attacking, and everything, okay? And if you go to a site like this, you'll quickly catch on to one pretty important trend. So the first column shows which countries are doing the hacking, okay? And by the way, the United States is always pretty highly ranked. It's not like we're, Boy Scouts. The second column shows what kind of virus they're trying to spread. But the third column is the bad trend. It's which countries are the attacks. Who are they really going after, okay? And not only is the United States always the #1 target of the hackers, we're the #1 by far. 10 times more than any other country, the United States gets hacked, okay? And the major reason for this is, first of all, we're not going to get into politics in this class, but the truth is our government does not do a really good job protecting us as citizens on the internet, okay? But more importantly, almost the entire technology world's infrastructure is based out of America. You look at all the biggest technology companies, from Apple to Amazon to Google, go down the list, they're all American companies that really built the internet. So the hackers come after the United States like crazy, okay? That's the real truth. And I'm sure you recognize a lot of these logos up on the screen. Some of the big companies that have been hacked over the last couple of years, companies like Sony and Chase Manhattan Bank. Anytime a huge company gets hacked, it hits the headlines, it freaks us all out, especially if you use them as a customer. And then you kind of go back to life as normal after a little bit, right? And then another big company gets hit, it hits the headlines again, we all freak out again and go back to life as normal, okay? But the truth is, even though it seems like these huge corporations get hacked all the time, they're not the real targets of the hackers. And the reason is, if I'm a hacker and I break into, let's say, Chase Manhattan Bank, they're going to spend almost $1 million hiring 3 different companies. One is what's called a forensic firm. They're going to try to catch the hackers. They're going to hire a second company to rebuild their entire security system so it never happens ever again. And they're going to hire a third company to basically deal with the PR and the mess and the cleanup. Okay? It's almost $1 million when a corporation gets hacked. That's not even talking about business loss. That's just the actual physical cost of hiring those 3 companies. Okay? So even though it seems like these huge corporations get hacked all the time, it really isn't that frequent. Because if I am successful hacking into a huge company, there's a risk I'm going to get caught. They're going to try to catch me, and they're also going to make sure I can't get back in ever again. So it's a one-time opportunity when you hack into a big corporation. So anyone want to take a guess who the real targets of the hackers are?
Us.
Absolutely, it's us. Okay? Every single day in the United States, 30,000 consumers and small business owners are the victim of a digital crime. Identity theft, credit theft, all the stuff. I guarantee you every single person in this room has had some kind of digital crime happen to you at some point. Even me, I'm a security freak. I've had it happen. My credit card just got hit again this week, okay? So this happens all the time. And the reason is they can keep running the exact same scams over and over and over on us with no risk getting caught. And they can make billions of dollars and keep running the exact same scams over and over and over, okay? So even though it seems like big corporations are the targets, they're not, okay? And by the way, we don't have time to really dig into this, okay? But the worst hack of all time last year was Equifax, okay? We're not talking a number of people affected, but from a financial standpoint, Equifax hack was just monstrous, okay? Every single adult in the United States credit is completely exposed on the dark web, up for sale, okay? Because the Equifax hacked, and that absolutely affects real estate. So whether it's you with your own personal finances, or if you're just talking to your customers, you need to recommend that they should freeze their credit at all 3 major credit bureaus. Okay? All you got to do is go to the 3 different websites, log into your account. It's almost like hitting the pause button. You just freeze your account, and then when it's time to do the actual deal to get a new line of like financing open, you just go in and unpause it. But if they don't freeze their credit, the 3 credit bureaus, anybody could take out a line of credit in their name with no knowledge of it. Getting cars, getting homes, whatever they want. So you definitely need to do it yourself, and you should be advising your customers they should have their credit frozen until the time they need their deal. Does that kind of make sense? Because that was the worst hack of all time. All right, so how and why is all this happening? Okay, is it just a bunch of really talented, geeky kids on the internet trying to figure out how to make money on the side and pay for college? Nope. What we grew up with organized crime was basically mafia-style organized crime. And the way the mafia worked was always very local intimidation and extortion. And every mobster either ends up underground or in jail, okay? Then organized crime syndicates from around the world caught on to the concept of why should we do this in our own backyard? We could be the ones orchestrating all these viruses and all these digital crimes from another side of the world and no risk ever getting caught. This is not kids. This is now big, big business, highly funded and really well done, okay? And they're making billions of dollars doing it. But more importantly, why is this so important for real estate? And this is what you and I were talking about a second ago, okay? Here's the quick question. Before today, how many of you in this room have even had 5 minutes of data security training before now? Give you a high five. A few of you need to get a high five, okay? But the truth is, from the minute you become a realtor, you are set up for failure in the data world. Every single one of you had to take your oath to the Code of Ethics, correct? Article 1-9 basically says one of your primary duties as a realtor is the collection and storage of everything related to your business. Documentation, files, communications, everything has to be collected and stored. And then depending on what state you live in, state laws require the collection of that data to be stored for 3 to 5 years, okay? So the minute you become a realtor, you're now collecting information with no training on how to properly do it. You have to do it for most of your deals, okay? And all you gotta do is pay attention to any industry news, out of NAR, out of Inman, there's constantly stories about realtors and the whole real estate industry being really targets of all hackers in so many different areas. And we're going to talk about these things like wire transfer fraud and listing scams and how they're really hurting the business, okay? But this is happening all over the place, okay? That's an actual association that was held hostage. There have been several of those that have happened around the industry. Associations completely taken offline by hackers, okay? And by the way, this is right there, that slide. I always say this has the potential to destroy the real estate industry. And that slide paints the picture perfectly. That's the AARP, the largest trade organization in this entire country, warning every single one of their members, be careful what realtor you choose, because typical realtor does not know how to protect you properly. Does that make sense? So that opens the door for very tech-centered companies to say, well, realtors don't really understand how to do this well, but we're a tech company. We could. It could literally destroy the real estate industry. Okay? So what we're going to start getting into is the top 10 things that can hurt your business in tech and teach you how to solve them, okay? But I always say before we get into it, there's 3 big concepts I want you guys to have in your head for the hour, okay? The first major concept is what I call casing the neighborhood. And what it means is, let's say I'm a thief. I'm trying to decide which house in the block I want to break into, right? And Rob's house is the first house in the block. He has a nice tall gate, really good exterior lighting. All of his landscapes have been cut back properly. I might even see a camera to expose from the outside of his house. And then right next door is Steven's house, okay? Steven does not have a gate. All of his landscaping is way overgrown, especially by all the windows. Poor lighting, everything. Which house am I breaking into? Steven's. And the point is, if a hacker wants you, if they're good and motivated, they can get into anything. But what they really do is they say, well, this house has too much security, move to the next one, okay? The more little things you go home and do what I teach you, the less likely you're gonna get hacked. Does that make sense? There's no guarantees, it just makes it way less likely. The second big concept is what's called the one weak link in the chain. And anybody that understands data security, they live by this. And what it means is, I'm gonna try to teach you over the next hour how to make yourself way, way safer. But all it takes is one person in your sphere that doesn't understand data security, you're still back to square one. In other words, anyone in your household, your spouse, your kids, or whatever, they need better passwords. They need the stuff we're gonna teach you because they could still get you in trouble. If you work at a company, get on the company network. Everyone in the company needs to understand this better, okay? Which is why the third big concept is what I call be the coach, okay? Now, by the way, I'm not expecting you to learn this stuff in an hour, be able to go home and teach everyone in your company all this stuff I'm gonna teach you, okay? But what I'm recommending is you can take my entire slide deck, bring it to your company owner and say, figure out how to get someone to train us how under all this stuff because everyone in the company needs to understand it better. Does that make sense? So I want you to share this stuff because I can't be everywhere every day. All right, so now let's start going through our top 10 ways that really hurt your business when it comes to tech. And again, everything in here is here's the problem, here's how to solve it, okay? So the first big problem is you need to make sure every single device you own has the best antivirus protection running on it. And when I say every device, I mean that, okay? How many of you guys have antivirus running on your phones and tablets right now? 3 of you, okay? And that's typical. Most people don't think they have to protect their phones and tablets, which means hackers go after them like crazy because most people don't protect their mobile devices. How many guys have a Mac computer, an Apple? And I've been told by those idiots at the Apple store, you don't need to put antivirus on Mac computers. They're wrong. You need to put antivirus on everything, okay? So if you do any research, these are the top 3 antiviruses that a typical person can buy. We're not talking Fortune 500 company type stuff, but a typical person can put on their own devices. Either AVG, Avast, or Malwarebytes, okay? If you go to any company that does the testing, these are always the highest rated ones. So choose one of them and make sure you put it on every single device you own, okay? But here's the deal. Any antivirus company you go to, they're gonna have different options. They're gonna have a free option. That's really only meant for try it out, see if you like it. That's not meant to be your permanent protection. It's nowhere near as good enough as the paid versions. The next level up is just antivirus, and that's what most people buy, is just antivirus. And that really doesn't give you the level of protection you need. And by the way, that $25 price for a year is usually for a package, 2 or 3 computers, and they just give you your mobile devices these days, okay? But every antivirus company always has a bigger package. We're not talking a huge amount more, but they always have a suite or a premium package they try to upsell you into. And most people think, oh, they're just trying to upsell me into a lot of stuff I don't need. That is what you're supposed to buy. When you buy the bigger suites, you're getting what's called end-to-end protection. They're giving you way more protection in your inbox, in your email, on the internet, on your devices and everything when you buy the full suites. So it's an extra $50 a year or so to get it, but you definitely want to get it. Does that make sense? All right. Yes, sir. No. He's asking about Windows Essential, which is just basically built into Windows, nowhere near sufficient. Okay? And by the way, you do not want 2 antiviruses on the same device. So if you go with a better one, you uninstall, or with that, you just got to turn it off. Okay? You never want 2 antiviruses on the same device. They'll literally fight each other and think each other one's a virus. Okay? So that's our step 1. Okay? Step 2 is everything running on your devices needs to be up to date and patched at all times. How many times have you been on your computer and get one of these little pop-ups? Windows wants to do an update, or Adobe Acrobat, or whatever on your computer wants to do an update. Okay? Well, there's only 2 reasons why they put out these little updates or patches. First, sometimes it's because people are complaining. The software is a little bit buggy, they had to go fix it to make it work better. Okay? Sometimes it is just to fix issues. But the more likely and scary reason why they are taking the effort to put out a big update, there's a security hole in that program. The hackers have already figured it out. They had to go create a patch to close up the security hole to keep the hackers out. So if it's a security update and not just a fix update, the worst thing you can do is what you're doing right now. What do you do every single time you see these little updates?
And did you have it in Norton antivirus?
Norton's garbage.
Huh?
Norton's is garbage if you look into it. It's one of the worst rated antiviruses on the market. Okay? But when you guys are seeing these little updates happening, what are you typically doing right now?
Well, sometimes we think that
That's so funny.
Well, I'm going to teach you how to make sure it's legit, okay? But what you are doing, most of you guys are doing is, postpone it. I'll do it later. I'm busy right now. Well, if it's a security update, the hackers get the exact same notice. And what it means is they attack even harder that day because they know the window's going to close. By the end of the day, a lot of people install the update, so they attack even harder if it's a security update. So you can't just postpone it. You can always click and read the details what the update's about. If it's a security update, you got to do them right away. Does that make sense? So let's quickly teach you. Oh, by the way, I'm hoping nobody here in the room got affected by these last summer. Summer 2017, there were 2 virus outbreaks. First one was called PETA, and about a month later was called the WannaCry. Okay? They didn't affect America too bad. They ravaged Europe, especially England. Okay? But what these 2 viruses were about was any older Windows computer that didn't have Windows 10 on it, basically you would open up your computer, and you would all of a sudden hit with ransomware. You have to pay us X amount of money to get your computer back. Okay? And this is the first time ever they've been able to say without a question that human deaths were caused by computer viruses. In fact, they have attributed over 1,000 human deaths to these 2 viruses. And by the way, this would play out in America as well, because almost every single hospital system in America runs off Windows platforms. Almost every single ambulance, fire, police runs off Windows platforms. So basically, you had entire hospitals offline that couldn't treat their patients. Ambulances that didn't know where to bring the patients and everything else because of these 2 viruses. So over 1,000 deaths were caused by these 2 viruses. And that just gives you an idea of you need to make sure your stuff is updated. Okay? So let's quickly teach you how to make sure your entire operating system that runs the whole computer is up to date. Okay? And for everything I'm going to teach you, one side will be for Windows, next side will be for Apple. Okay? So the first thing is, on a Windows computer, if you have Windows 10, you don't have to worry about this at all. Windows 10 updates automatically at all times now. But if an older Windows computer, you have to go to Control Panel, System Security, and Windows Updates, and then you check off that you want automatic updates. That way it'll just happen automatically when they come out. Okay? With a Mac computer, you go to your little Apple menu, System Preferences in your App Store, and you'll see checkboxes both for your operating system and your app, which is your software, in the same place. And make them automatically updated at all times. So it's not hard to do that. Okay? But here's the trickier one. Your software. How many times have you been on your computer and get a little pop-up that says Adobe Acrobat or Flash or something like that wants to be updated? Okay? Well, what if it's not a real pop-up from Adobe? Okay? You can't fall for pop-ups. And that's why it's another reason why you buy the full antivirus suite. If you buy the antivirus suite, your antivirus itself will monitor your software updates. So if Avast is telling me go update Adobe Acrobat, I know it's real because it happens inside my antivirus program. Does that make sense? It takes away the falling for the pop-up if your antivirus is helping you with this. All right, third one is your passwords. And the truth is, your passwords are probably the biggest weakness that you guys have, okay? I'm going to go out on a limb and assume most of you in the room fall into one of 2 categories. Either category number 1, you have a handful of passwords you use. You might change an I over here and an O over there on different sites, but you just start using a handful of passwords. That's all you can really remember on every site, okay? Or category number 2, you are making a little bit more of an effort to have different passwords. But now you have to carry on a little book or a spreadsheet with you everywhere you go, and you got to pull that out of your bag every time you want to log into any websites. I know most of you? Yeah. Passwords are the biggest security weakness that everyone has. You can't have weak passwords. You can't use the same password on multiple sites. They'll use it and figure out how to get into other sites with it. Okay? The truth is, every single website and app you use should have a totally unique and a totally complex password. And when I say complex, I'm talking uppercases and lowercases, and in a weird mixture, and sites that allow you symbols thrown in symbols. It should not be a word with a letter or 2 changed. It should be completely random. And the reason is, every hacker on earth uses what's called a password cracker. It's a little program they can use. They hit the start button, and then it tries to find every combination, just randomizing letters and numbers. And if it's just a word or a change of a letter or 2, it can take them minutes to crack your password. If it's all randomized with the uppercase and lowercases and everything, it can take thousands of years until they find your combination. Okay? But here's the problem. The human brain can't remember hundreds of crazy passwords. There's no way. So there's 2 different ways to tackle your passwords. The first, you could either go with an automated strategy or a manual one. An automated one is using what's called a password manager. These are little programs you can pay for that will help you remember every single password of every single site. Okay? So the highest rated, the best one out there is called LastPass. Last time I checked, it was $12 a year for this, no matter how many devices you own. But if you're on your own computer, every website you go to, it'll help you plug in your passwords for that site. Let's say you're not on your own devices. Let's say you're at a client's house. You just log into your LastPass account on the LastPass website and retrieve your passwords from your account on someone else's devices. Okay? So it'll help you remember every password at every single site. But here's the little problem. Okay? Not just LastPass. Every single password manager on earth at this point has been hacked. All of them. The hackers have caught on to tools like LastPass are a gold mine where I can get everyone's passwords out of one place. So I almost showed you that to set you up. I can be a jerk sometimes. Not gonna lie. Okay? You don't want to use any of them. I don't care which one you're using. Keychain, RoboForm, they've all been hacked. Okay? So I'm going to teach you how to really do your passwords properly with a manual strategy. This is free. It's very easy to implement. You just got to go home and do it. Okay? So the strategy I'm going to teach you is called a base psychology password. And the way this works is you're going to come up with a base. Your base will be the exact same thing on every single site you go to. Okay? But your base has to be very weird and random with letters and numbers and uppercase and lowercase in a totally nonsensical order. Okay? And by the way, some sites actually make you put symbols in, and some sites don't even allow symbols. So you might have to come up with a second base to support sites that make you use the symbols. Okay? But let's just, to make it easier, guys, visually, just go with the one base. Okay? The psychology part is every single site you go to, you come up with one little word that makes you think of the site. So it's almost like a word association. So let's say, for example, for your Facebook account, you put Zuck at the end of it because Mark Zuckerberg makes you think of Facebook. And then for your Gmail account, throw Google at the end of Google, you throw Gmail at the end of that one. For your AOL account, put AOL at the end of that one. And for your MLS account, you put MLS at the end of that one. Okay? So in the real terms, long term, all you have to do is remember one little word per site. That's not hard. So for the first month, you can carry around the first part, the base, on a little piece of paper until you memorize it. But after you've typed into every single site hundreds of times, you'll eventually memorize your base. But really, all you're having to do after that is memorize one word per site. That's easy, right? Okay? And by the way, most security experts recommend you should change your passwords a few times a year. They actually recommend quarterly. Very easy to implement. All you do is throw Q1 at the end of it for the first quarter of the year, Q2 at the second quarter. Then when September rolls around, you have to come up with a whole new strategy. You just change that 2 to a 3. And if you really want to think about this in the future, so you don't have to redo it the next year, throw the year at the end as well. Okay? So all you really have to do is remember one little word per site. That's not hard to do. What you're doing right now is hard. Am I wrong? Okay? And by the way, you're never supposed to have a file or a document or anything like that on your devices with your passwords, like a password list. But using this technique, you could. I can make, let's say, a spreadsheet of just the one word. Facebook equals Zook, Gmail equals Gmail, AOL equals AOL. I could just make a list of the one words, and if a hacker gets their hands on it, they're going to not know what it is because they don't have the first part and they don't have the third part. Does that make sense? That's how geeks do passwords. We know it's unhackable. This is just showing you how it worked for a full site. All right. Yes, sir?
Did you say that we should put a symbol in that too? Or
well, some sites don't let you. Some sites don't even let symbols.
Okay.
But some sites make you.
Upper, lower, and numbers.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. Some sites don't allow symbols at all, and then some sites literally make you. They say you have to have a symbol in there. And that's why I say you might have to come up with 2 bases for sites that make you use the symbols. Does that make sense?
2 questions. That was only 7 digits. Most of them want at least 8.
Well, no. If we back up, the base was about 7, but then you have the Gmail part plus the quarter year part. So you're minimum 12, 15.
Okay, sorry. That's my next question.
Yep.
Does it matter to have a different username, or can you use that?
The problem with usernames is a lot of sites don't let you have different usernames. For most websites and tools, it's your email address. Sites that allow to have a different username, definitely it wouldn't be even smarter to have a tougher username, right? But some sites, it's not an option.
Is it bad to let it remember your username?
Not really, as long as you're not remembering the password.
Well, that was the question I was going to ask, where Google offers remember.
Yeah, that's actually the browser. So if you're using Chrome or Firefox, whatever browser, you don't want to let your browsers remember your passwords. It literally creates a file that they can get into. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Yep, sorry. All right. Step number 4 we got to solve is called phishing. Okay? And phishing are when you get these little deceptive emails, text messages, go to sneaky web pages. And what phishing is, even though you spell it with a PH to understand what it is, assume that it's spelled with an F. It's a sneaky, deceptive message that's trying to trick you into taking the bait. The bait could be trying to get you to click on a link they want you to click on, to give up your username or your password or PIN number. They're trying to trick you into giving them what they want, okay? And by the way, there's two different kinds of phishing scams. There's broad phishing scams, which you guys get every single day in your inbox. I'm the African prince, send me money, and here's your UPS delivery tracking link. Those are broad phishing scams. It sends the same message out to millions of people, see how many people fall for it, okay? And we're gonna teach you how to definitely identify those. Those are easy. But we're also gonna talk about a way scarier side of phishing called spear phishing. And spear phishing isn't just throw it out to everybody, it's going after one person. And wire transfer fraud is a clear example of spear phishing, where they're going after the buyer, okay? So for overall phishing, what they really prey on is you, the consumer, being in a rush and not paying attention, okay? So the first big piece of advice I can give you to avoid any kind of phishing scam is slow down. The more you slow down and pay attention, you might pick up on some pretty obvious tip-offs that this isn't a legit message, okay? So most phishing scams occur in email, okay? So the first thing is, anytime you get an email, you should always look at what's called the header information. Expand the to field to see where the email address really is from. For example, would Bank of America ever use a Yahoo email address? No way. They would use their own domain for the email address. So if you see something like that where the header information doesn't match who they claim they are, it probably is a phishing scam, okay? Also, 99% of phishing scams on American citizens come from outside the US. So you might want to look at it real quick and say, are there any spelling or grammar errors? Is the just colloquialisms? It doesn't sound like an American wrote this thing, okay? Those are usually pretty obvious tip-offs. And always look at the actual links. Move your mouse over a link. Don't click on it, but move your mouse over it and see what the URL really is. In other words, there's only one company out there that can own bankamerica.com. They'll go buy famerica.com and do bank and you don't notice it because you're in a rush. Okay? So you got to slow down and pay attention, and you'll see stuff like this. By the way, the second biggest piece of advice I can give you to avoid these scams, don't click on anything anymore. You have no idea what's in your emails, what's in your text message, what's real and fake. Go to the browser yourself and go to the website yourself. You don't know what you're clicking on. That's the reality. So if you don't click on anything, you're safe. Okay? Let's say you did click, and now you go out to the website. Again, you can look at the URL. Is it really the right website address? Is the design a little bit off or the grammar a little bit off on the site? And the fourth bullet is important. When it occurs on websites, the bottom line is sometimes they get greedy. In other words, if every other time you've ever been to your bank's website, or let's say Facebook, all you had to do is put in a username and a password. But this one visit, because you clicked on the link from that message, all of a sudden they want your PIN number and social security number. Why? Right? Or they want to give you your security challenge questions for the first time. Like, huh? Okay? And by the way, the big thing you need to understand, just because you are now logged into your real bank account and see your real balance up in the corner doesn't mean the bad thing didn't happen already or it won't happen later. You just gave them your password. They can come back a day later and clear you out. Does that make sense? So that's why you don't want to click on anything, because you can't think, well, I got into the real account. It didn't happen. It could still happen. As I mentioned, wire transfer fraud is a much more sophisticated form of the phishing where they're going after one person. And it is rampant all around the industry. How many of you, do any of you guys in the room either have had it happen to you personally, or at least somebody in your company had a wire transfer situation happen to you so far? Okay? That's about a third of the room, guys. Do any of you guys know the details well enough to maybe just describe it real quick to the group? Like what happened? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So this individual had a secondary email, not a company email, like a Yahoo or whatever. They ended up sending it to their client, wire instructions. It got picked up. They masked it, sent it back to them, and ultimately this person wired X amount of dollars to buy their house and never got it by the company.
Yep. And by the way, I'm going to explain it from a geeky side how it really does happen, right? But everything he's talking about, I mean, I've dealt with cases where I've had to do expert witness case and everything, $800,000 losses, $1.2 million losses, huge amounts of money being lost on deals and wire transfer. The way it works, the real technical side, okay, is the hackers typically will hack into whoever actually handles the funds of the transaction. So depending on what state you are in, either your title company, escrow, or real estate attorneys. So they'll hack into their email server, okay? Then what they do is, first, they really monitor every email in that account for a period of time. They're literally reading every single email. And the reason they're doing that is, first, they want to learn the entire look and feel of every single email. They want to know exactly what the signatures look like, what wording they use in every email, and that way they can mimic it later. They also want to figure out the identity of everybody in the transaction. They know that he's the buyer, he's the buyer's agent, she's the seller, she's the seller's agent, and she's the title agent, okay? And they can use everyone's identity to even more confuse the buyer, saying, hey, I just spoke to your agent, everything, he's aware of everything. They know on Friday when the deal goes down that you're going to do the transfer this way. And when you show up, they're ready to give you the keys. I also talked to the Johnsons, the sellers, everything's on board, right? So they're using everyone's identity, one, to confuse the buyer more, and also to implicate you. Because trust me, there's going to be legal situations later if this happens, okay? By the way, if I've hacked into your email server, it also means I can do whatever I want to your email accounts. So I could either create a secondary email account like that situation had, where it's, let's say my normal email account was craiggrant@titlecompany.com. I just make it craig.grant, and you don't notice the little dot, okay? Or forget creating a second account. I can use your real account. I can go and create a rule that you don't know that says every single time we send an email from our IP, even though we're in another country, put it into a folder you don't notice. Every time you respond to our emails, put it into that folder so you don't notice it, okay? And by the way, once this goes down, I'll get you in 1 second. Once this really goes down, you're going to go into your own email account and be like, oh my God, that folder's been there for 3 weeks. They've been doing this the whole time, and see all those emails you didn't notice. Okay? Yes, sir.
Craig, if somebody's following your email accounts and DocuSigns,
When it comes to a transaction, you want to do everything in a digital contract program like DocuSign or appfiles.loop. Those are really making sure the transaction is secure. What we're really talking about here is the actual wiring of the funds, not the contract. Okay? So it's a different stage of the deal. Yeah, Jeff?
The only problem with that is that DocuSign got hacked.
No, DocuSign's actual forms contract didn't get hacked. Their kind of marketing database of their customers did. So basically, that's why you started getting emails to realtors trying to trick realtors through DocuSign. It wasn't the data, the actual contracts did not get affected. It was basically their marketing database. So yes, they got hacked, but it was wasn't really the deal. Okay. So, and by the way, that last bullet is extremely important. Most realtors I talk to think, oh, if this ever happens, my EO insurance will help me. It does not cover 1 penny, nothing, for any digital crime. We're going to teach you what does help you if this happens, okay? So what we're going to quickly teach you is the 4 steps how to make sure you defend yourself and your clients from wire transfer fraud, okay? So the first one is not only you, but you also might want to educate your customers of what I just taught you a second ago of how phishing works. Tell them to look at header information. Tell them to look at links and things like that. And that way they're a little bit more up to speed on how to kind of detect a phishing scam. Okay? So you can just kind of repeat the exact same stuff I just taught you of just understanding phishing. Okay? And definitely tell them don't click. Okay? Step 2 is you want to take it a step further. Not just teaching them about phishing, but you really want to cover yourself and teach them about actual wire transfer fraud. What it is, how it works. You want to indemnify yourself. And by the way, depending on where you work in the country, some associations at the state levels and some local associations have now created wire transfer disclosure forms, an actual contract you can have the person sign. But here's the deal. I've already been talking to a lot of AEs about this. They're doing it wrong. A lot of them are tying it into the actual contract, okay? Which means you don't get them to sign that until the day of the deal. They've already wired the money out if it's a part of the contract. That disclosure form should be a separate thing you do at the beginning. Does that make sense? So when you first start working with the buyer, you explain it, say, I've explained everything about wire transfer to you, sign it. Yes?
We use it as, when I do a listing presentation.
Yep.
I have the client, if I get the listing, I have the client sign it and have.
That's my point. Some contracts around the country they have it tied to the contract though. And by then it's too late. What you're doing is correct. As soon as you work with a buyer, get them to sign that form, okay? By the way, a lot of people around the country have taken it even a step further. They're now creating a wire disclosure disclaimer in their email signature, so every single email they send out repeats it. Do not click on any links. That's not how we do deals, okay? And third step Sometimes this isn't your decision. If you're an agent, sometimes this is above your head. Sometimes your company selects your vendors, okay? But my point is, whatever vendor you're choosing to handle your transaction, you should do your homework and make sure they're on top of wire transfer. Most title companies, real estate attorneys, escrow companies are now scared so badly of wire transfer, they're on top of it. They're making phone calls, they're not just sending emails. They're doing more than just, hey, here's an email with a link in it, because they've been burned. Okay? So you do your homework and make sure whatever client vendor you're working with, they're on top of this, they're involving phone calls. But here's an additional little tip for you. Okay? I recommend the second you start working with a buyer, you say, pull out your phone right now, let's create a contact for the title company, or whatever you have, escrow, real estate attorney, and you have them create the contact with the information you're giving them. And then you instruct your buyer to say, hey, if you ever get a phone call where we're close to a deal from that title company, you either say, if it's not the contact I created, you don't pick it up, or let's say they pick it up by accident, you say, all right, I'm going to hang up and call you back with the information that I know is your correct phone number. Because the problem is the conners are now faking phone calls. Does that make sense? Okay. And then here's another one. Okay. Most realtors I know don't waste their time introducing their buyer to the title person until the end. It's a waste, right? My recommendation is you might want to do it at the beginning as well. And by the way, most title companies I know, real estate attorneys, they're happy to take you out to lunch, right? Get a free lunch out of every buyer. You tell your title company, every time I get a new buyer, you're taking the three of us out to lunch, and that way they get to know you. They know your voice, they know your personality, they can't fall for the fake phone call. And you just got a free lunch. Does that make sense? Okay, because again, the phone calls are being faked now as well. And then the vendor themselves, you need to make sure they have what's called cyber insurance. Again, EO insurance doesn't help you. There's a separate line of insurance called cyber insurance, and it's only a couple $100s a year for this, okay? But if you have cyber insurance, most policies can cover up to $1 million if you ever have this. Well, they'll pay not just for the actual money lost, but for credit monitoring and PR cleanup and everything else. Okay? So the vendor needs to have the cyber insurance, and then on your end, you got to have it. Okay? Now, NAR's recommendation at this point, it should not be the agent's responsibility to get cyber insurance. They're recommending that companies should have blanket coverage for the whole company. So if you're an agent, you need to be speaking to your broker saying, hey, do we have this? And if you don't, you need to recommend to them, you need to look into it and get it for us. It's usually a couple $100s a year per agent for this, okay? But here's a crazy stat NAR put out a couple months ago. Any real estate company involved in a wire transfer scam that did not have cyber insurance, 88% were out of business within 6 months. 88% of them, okay? For $400 a year coverage, I think that's worth it to protect your company. Yeah.
I just wanted to read out my commercial broker and be reported to the company. We are evaluating a policy of going completely old school and eliminating all wire transfers. It's just the Wild West and it's too hard to protect. So checks in the mail, maybe where we go.
Yeah. Well, and some have gone that route. You know what I mean? But oh yeah, some are going back to, we want to actually have a cashier's check. We want to make sure this is legit. I mean, because these scams happen in so many ways. And they can destroy your business if you don't have it. But if you had cyber insurance, you'd at least be covered for legal fees and everything else going on. Okay? And by the way, the big thing about cyber insurance, let's say I'm that buyer. You just cost me my life savings. Who do you think I'm coming after legally? That is the correct answer. It's everyone. They sue everyone involved because you just cost them their life. Okay? They don't care that you did this and you did that. They're still going to come after you and your company regardless.
What did you say the cost was of cyber insurance?
Typical cyber insurance, $400 or $500 a year per person. Of course, if you're buying for a big company, I'm sure there'd be a volume price on it. But you're talking easily less than $1,000 a year per person.
Can you buy it individually?
Yes, you can buy it individually. Okay? All right, step 5 is you also need to make sure you're actually securing data on your devices. Okay? And this is where something called encryption comes into play. Encryption sounds like a big, scary word, but it's not. All it is means you're password protecting something someone else can't read it. In other words, it's not hard to hack onto your computer, click on your My Documents folder, and start reading all your documents, right? So if none of those files have a password on it, they can just click right in and start getting everything they want. But let's say you have a client folder, you're like, I want to have that entire folder be password protected. Now they can't get in to read all those documents in your client's folders. Does that make sense? So we don't have time to teach you everything about encryption, but I'm going to quickly teach you how to do the files and folders on your computers. Okay? So first of all, any modern program that creates the documents, That's Microsoft Word. But if you're using Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, Acrobat, anything like that, they all allow you to create a password as you're creating the document. So if it's an important document, you might want to password protect it. But why do one little file at a time? You can do entire folders at once. So on a Windows computer, all you got to do is this. Right-click your mouse over any folder. Then from the right-click menu, you click on Properties. Then from the next little pop-up, you click on Advanced. And then from the third little screen, you'll see a little checkbox that allows you to encrypt it with a password. So now you're doing the whole folder at once. Okay? And by the way, if you don't know how encryption works, if you add a new file to it a month later, it'll automatically get the same password. You don't have to redo this every time. Okay? For those of you guys in the room that are Mac, that are Apple users, Apple gives you a free program called Disk Utility. You open up that program, you go to the file, you select the folder you want to do it to, and then it encrypts that entire folder at once for you there. Okay? So this is free. You don't have to do anything crazy to encrypt files or folders on your computers. Yeah, Ellie?
So what if you put a password on a folder and then forget what the password is? Asking for a friend.
Don't. No, I mean, if you password protect a folder, it's not like a website where you can say reset my password. You definitely need to keep a log of those passwords. Well, no, I mean, it's not over. Anybody if you go to a computer store or to a Good Geek, they can get into it. There's ways to break encryption.
And on that same topic about Dropbox or OneDrive.
First of all, and I said we can't go through every part of it. Usually in the bigger class, I go through how to encrypt the cloud, how to encrypt your devices and everything. Okay? I will warn you very, very quickly. When it comes to file storage, there's one company I warn everybody about not to use. It's Dropbox. Okay? Dropbox has by far the worst security in the cloud. They've been hacked multiple times over the last 2 years. They have horrible security. So don't use Dropbox. That's step one. Okay? If you want to add a password to a folder in the cloud, I use a tool called Boxcryptor for that. So it's free. You can add it into a cloud program and then say, now I want to password protect folders in there. Yeah, it's called B-O-X, Cryptor. So it just works with your existing cloud account, allows you to put passwords inside of there.
Is that a T-E-R or T-O-R?
C-R-Y-P-T-O-R.
Is there an app for that?
I'm sorry?
Is there an app?
No. Sorry. All right.
C-R-Y-B-T-E-R.
It's B-O-X,
Okay.
C-R-Y-P-T-O-R.
O-R.
Yep.
Thank you.
Programs like ShareFile or a company uses ShareFile that does back
As far as I know, it's safe. I've never seen anything bad about that one. The one I warn about, I mean, you always want to look into what products you're choosing. Companies like Dropbox, it's not hidden. I mean, it's out there. If you just do a search, see how many times they've been hacked. All right, step 6 is what's called social engineering, okay? And this is the entire thing of how they can gather information about you off the internet to use against your friends and family and your customers. And they can use your contacts information against you to try to trick you. So one thing is, you just want to make a little bit more of an effort if you can. And again, if you download the whole class, I have tools you could use to monitor your own reputation. But you need to know if your own name is being used in a scam somewhere, or if your listing is involved in a scam, stuff like that. So you do want to monitor your internet presence, okay? And if you're not willing to do it yourself, there's companies now you could just pay for it. Just like we have credit monitoring in real life, they have online credit monitoring as well. And they'll let you know if your name is being involved in a scam and help you clean it up, okay? And then I'm a big believer in your personal life can destroy your business life in 2 seconds in social media. So it doesn't have to be your actions, by the way. You could be a great person, but if you have one friend who's a crazy political person or a racist or whatever, and I see that in your feed, I don't want to work with you. Okay? So I'm a big believer in a couple times a year, you might want to have a little bit of a social media cleansing day. Okay? Go through your own feed and see if there's anything out there you're not proud of. Maybe you want to go delete or hide. Okay? Go through your friends and see, is there any of my friends that are causing me problems in social media? Maybe I want to hide them in my feed, or maybe I just want to unfriend them if they're not really a good person. Okay? So you should every once in a while go through and make sure there's nothing out there in social media that can hurt you on the business side. Okay? Step 7 is just general tech safety tips. Okay? So one overall one, you always need to have a backup disaster plan of everything at all times. Okay? You can do little bits of information on things like thumb drives or disks. You can back up whole computers on things like external hard drives. Okay? But here's the deal. That can be your secondary backup. That shouldn't be your main backup. And the reason is you never want your actual computer and whatever you're backing it up on in the same location as each other. What if I'm a thief and I break in and I steal both your computer and your external hard drive? Or you have a flood or a fire or anything like that, and they both get damaged, okay? You always want to make sure what you're backing things up on is in a totally different location, which means use the cloud, okay? So there's companies like Carbonite, where you can pay a couple dollars a month and back up a whole computer through the internet, okay? And by the way, Google just recently added what's called Google Drive Sync, meaning you can back up an entire computer into Google automatically as well, okay? So either way, you really want to make sure when you're backing up an entire device is happening through the cloud, not at your location. Yeah, Mike?
When we encrypt files on our desktop and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you suggested we do something like Carbonite. Does that encryption stay in place?
Yes. Yep, if something's password protected, it stays encrypted when you upload it to something. Yeah. iCloud, they've had some security issues. They've been hacked a few times. I mean, if you guys remember about a year and a half ago, all the celebrity nude pictures all over the internet, that was iCloud hacks. It was happening, okay? And by the way, I'm not saying Apple doesn't have good tools. I typically don't recommend any of Apple's tools for one reason. Everything Apple does is Apple only. So if you have one device yourself that's not Apple, you can't use it. If I'm a team leader or a company owner, I have one person in the whole team that does use an Apple product, they can't use it, okay? So to me, because Apple is so restrictive, Apple only, I really don't suggest them for a lot of these things. Okay? All right, also, Wi-Fi. And I'm sure a lot of you are on the Wi-Fi right now going, oh, awesome. Wi-Fi is one of the worst parts of security. Okay? The second you get on a network, anybody in the area on the same network can get onto your device in seconds without your knowledge. Okay? So you got to be careful going to very high traffic locations where people are on the networks, like convention centers, like hotels and airports. Hackers will hang out at coffee shops and just wait in Starbucks all day long and hit every person in that Starbucks all day long, okay? We're not talking about little mom and pop restaurants, but if you're going to a big location where people are there all day long on the internet, you got to be careful, okay? So there's only a couple ways to be safe using the internet in public. One is you can use your own device as a hotspot, your phone as a hotspot to a second device. You can say, I'll use my phone to get my laptop online. You can also get what are called VPNs. And the good antiviruses, they include it with those suites. In other words, you could be at a Starbucks, and instead of directly connecting to their Wi-Fi, you would launch your VPN and then connect to their Wi-Fi using your VPN. And it kind of hides you where nobody else sees you on the network. And then the third and the fourth options are offered by the mobile companies. So if you're using AT&T for your phone, you get it from them. They either sell what are called air cards or shared hotspots. So an air card is usually already in the device. They'll say, you buy that tablet from us, use it anywhere you go for $10 a month, okay? Or the laptop, same deal. Whereas a shared hotspot, it's like a little brick you can carry with you and connect multiple devices to the internet at one time with it, okay? So that's the only way to really be safe in public. So you don't really want to be on your hotel's network when you go back to your room, okay? And then there's a whole distraction factor. Ellie?
So with the iPhone, the VPN is no longer included on the new updates.
Mm-hmm.
What company do you recommend?
Well, if you remember the 3 antivirus companies I gave, AVG, Avast, Malwarebytes, they all offer a VPN. Okay. So if you buy the suite, they'll say it's another perk. You now have a VPN tool to use. Yeah.
Can you turn off that VPN in one of those suites?
Absolutely. And you don't need it unless you're in a public location.
Right, and I have one I like, I don't want to stop.
Yep, not a problem. All right. There's also the distraction factor, okay? And we all know the story that real estate's a very dangerous profession. There's actually a story about another realtor being murdered today. That was in the news. Yep. Outside his car at a showing. So basically, you don't want to be distracted by your tech when you're entering and leaving your property or somebody else is in your property is doing showings. You got to be on your toes looking out for danger, okay? And if you're looking for a really good free app to help protect yourself when you're in the field, I do recommend this one called Be Safe. It's just a letter B, not the word B. It's free and very easy to use. All you do is you create your list of emergency contact people, your best friend, your spouse, your broker, whoever you want to put there. And once that's set up, you have all these little buttons along the bottom to protect yourself when you're in the field. So my advice is not only should you have this app on your phone, it should be open on the screen anytime you're in a real estate situation, entering or leaving properties or somebody in your properties. Or outside of real estate, it could be late at night, you're in the mall parking lot, you're nervous. Have this app open, ready to hit the buttons just in case. So starting with the second button, the fake phone call. Let's say somebody's in the property giving you a creepy feeling, you hit the fake phone call button, and that phone will ring, and you have a conversation with a fake person. Now creepy might leave, okay? Second one is the check-in location. You just hit the little pin. It would send a text message to all of your emergency people saying, hey, I got here safely on time, don't worry about me, okay? Whereas the one next to it is a timer. If I set the timer for 20 minutes, I don't turn it off in 20 minutes, I send all of them a text saying, hey, I want to check on me. I didn't get there safely on time, okay? And then going back to the first one, the follow me, you don't have to use this if you don't want to, but let's say, he's my best friend and we both accept each other on follow me. We could log in and see exactly where on the map at all times. On his end, he can see where I am, I can see where he is on the map, okay? But the most important button is the one in the middle, the circle. It's called Alert Friends. If I hit that button, 3 things happen immediately. First, even if my phone is on silent, it overrides and makes the loudest alarm noise it can possibly make, starts going berserk. Second, both my front and back cameras take a picture of what's in front and back of me, and those pictures are immediately saved on the BeSafe server. So if something really does happen, there might be proof to hand over to the police. And then third, immediately a text message goes out to all your emergency contacts. Help, I'm in trouble, is my exact location where I am with a map, okay? Even if your GPS is turned off, it can still get the location. So all 3 things happen with 1 click. Make sense?
This is BeSafe.
It's called BeSafe. Okay. Number 8, and we don't have time to go through all the laws, okay? But you do have to be aware also that there are federal and state laws you gotta be aware of, like can't spam from an emailing standpoint, and do not call list, and copyright, you can't just steal stuff and put it on your website, okay? There are some laws you gotta be aware of as well that if we had more time, we could totally get into, okay? Number 9 is NAR though, okay? In this industry, there's 2 major things you gotta keep your eye on, which is code of ethics and fair housing. That can get you in trouble with technology, okay? And by the way, here's the biggest thing I always point out when I teach anything about technology and the code and fair housing. As a realtor, you are on the clock 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for potential code of ethics and fair housing violations. You can't think, well, this is my personal Facebook account, not my business page. I can say whatever I want on my personal, or I'm in public talking to my friends, not talking to people I don't know, and not create that fair housing violation. You can, okay? So even your private life, you're held up to the bar for code of ethics and fair housing. Does that kind of make sense? So be careful. You can't just go out making statements that are steering or discriminatory in any way about anything, even in your private life. Make sense? And then the last one, number 10, is tech etiquette, okay? I'm obviously a lover of all aspects of technology, but I really think the worst part of tech by far is technology communication. When somebody is with you, let's say you're on the phone, they get the tone of your voice. If they're with you in person, they also get your body language. People know what you're saying with real communication. But when it's digital, they don't get any of that, okay? So the first big problem is that you think you're being sweet and personal, they interpret one word different than you intended it because they pick up some negative tone, and now they think you're a total jerk because of one word, okay? That's a big problem. Second, once you hit that send or submit button, there's no pulling it back. It's now a permanent record. Barbie goes to jail, and you can't get it back. They have it on their end to use it against you however they want. And the worst part is these days, in the old days, you made a client mad. You lost them as a customer, and maybe their small circle of friends who they would tell, don't work with that guy, he's a jerk. Now you make them mad, and they'll tell everyone they know, not only in person, but online, writing horrible reviews, and go to rip-off report and say you're a con artist. They'll destroy your business forever because you felt like you wanted to get something off your chest digitally, okay? So even though it feels good sometimes, you just flat out can't. You gotta just be smarter when it's in a digital format because it's permanent. Does that kind of make sense? And this is a little funny video to kind of drive that home.
Oh. Oh, no. Rod, you sent this email, reply all. You hit reply all. I was messing with you. You just emailed it to me. So gullible. Get it! You got me. So when are you headed home? 5-ish?
For drivers who want to get the most out of their cars,
Kind of
it's
get the point
Bridgestone
across.
or nothing.
You know it feels good sometimes, you just can't, right? And if you're looking for just an overall rule, I call it my 101 of etiquette, I call it my grandma rule, but whatever works for you personally. I would say if you're in any way annoyed with a customer, or whoever it is, a vendor, whatever, remove them from the situation and put someone in their place as the recipient that you love, fear, and respected at all times. For me, it was my grandmother. So in other words, I say, all right, I'm a little annoyed right now. If I sent this email to grandma, would she either lose respect for me or throw a shoe at me? Because one of the two would have happened. Okay? So it kind of helps you dial back, calm down, rewrite it a little bit, take some time, because digital can destroy your business so quickly when it comes to etiquette. Kind of make sense? All right. So final thoughts, as we talk about, if a hacker wants you or if somebody really wants to damage you, they're going to do it regardless. But hopefully I packed as much into the hour as I could to help you defend yourself and your clients and your business against some of these digital crimes. Okay? So as I mentioned at the very beginning, you can go there to download the entire class. It also sends you an email with a link in it that you can go back to any time. Okay? So you don't have to download it on your phone if you don't want it on your phone. Okay? And you can get much longer versions of this class if you go there. Yes, sir?
In the three virus programs highlighted, I thought the Avast and Malwarebytes were like two completely different products.
Oh, they are totally different products.
Well, I mean, you could have them on the same machine.
No, you never want more than one antivirus on any device. Remember I talked about they'll fight each other?
No, Malware was more like...
Well, Malwarebytes has, you can just download Malwarebytes to do a one-time scan of your computer to see if something's on there and just run it periodically. But if you want to run it every day as your real protection, that's when you get into the full system. Okay, yeah, Jeff?
I have a quick question for you. So you said now to click on a hyperlink or hover over it, take a look at where. What happens if you're using a Dropbox or OneDrive link and you put that into your email, say, hey, click here to see all your photos?
Yep.
And you can't go directly to...
You can't. What he's saying, if you can't hear him, is like, if it's a link to a website, don't click, go to the website. But when you're doing stuff like, hey, I'm sharing this file with you in Dropbox or Google Drive, whatever you're using, there's no real way to do that. My personal recommendation is if it's a link to something like that, you call and verify or text and verify, did you really send me this link? Because again, stuff like those sharing links are duped all the time in these scams. So if it were me, I would quickly send you a text and say, hey, did you really send me an email just now with a link to a Dropbox folder? Before I clicked on it.
Is there a website that, say you receive something, especially financial, and you think it looks a little creepy, is there a email address that you can send it to?
Yes. Most companies now, especially financial, absolutely have it. Most companies now have where you send it to abuse at their website address. So it's like abuse@bankAmerica.com. And then they'll reply back to you saying, this is legit or this is fake, thanks for reporting it. Okay? And by the way, there's no risk in forwarding emails. You can't get a virus by reading or forwarding an email. What can get you the virus is clicking or downloading. Okay? So that's why you can just easily say, can you check this out and tell me if it's legit.
Your bank account is empty.
Well, my personal advice is I would never, ever click on a financial link. Okay? And by the way, 5 years ago, it was illegal for them to put links in their emails. They lobbied and got it overturned. But you know your bank's website, go to it. You know Amex's website, go to it. Because if you give them access to your bank account, they can clear you out. Right? So to me, you really don't want to click on anything, but definitely not financial links.
Yeah. I have two fast questions.
Sure.
The cloud that is in our iPhones, is that a secure device to activate the cloud issue?
Are you talking about iCloud, where Apple backs up to? Again, Apple has had a couple of problems. They've been hacked once or twice, but it's good overall, okay? But yes, you do want to make sure your Apple devices are backing up in there.
Okay, one more question. You said at the beginning of this session that even when we get these iPhones, they tell us, because of Apple, we don't need any antivirus, to place any antivirus. And is that, you just mentioned that we should have an antivirus in this phone? What antivirus do you recommend?
The same three I gave on all devices. They work on Apple, they work on iPhones.
Like mandatory on these devices?
Well, here's the deal, and I've literally gotten in arguments with the geniuses at the Apple stores, because I've sat there and they've told people, oh, you don't need antivirus, and I was like, really? I'm like, because anybody could hack a Mac computer these days, anybody can hack an iPhone these days, okay? Like, what they tell you in those Apple stores is completely wrong. You need an antivirus on them.
Okay, Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you guys a quick example. A couple of years ago, we pitched an idea to NAR about we wanted to hack the entire audience at once, and they didn't let us because of lawyers, okay? But the reality is any device could be hacked in seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So when you put all your data on Carbonite, is that not another risk point, or that's the only way to live?
Every vendor is a risk point, and that's why when you pick a vendor solution for your business, you need to look into real quick their security.
And do you think Carbonite
Yes.
is safer?
Yes, Carbonite does have that kind of security. But I don't care what it is. If you're bringing on a new VoIP provider for your phone service or whatever, you always want to look into their security.
But if you add the folder security, then that keeps your online safer.
It adds an extra layer. Okay. Again, if a hacker wants you, they're going to get through anything. But the more layers you put in, the less they'll fight to do it.
The insurance companies that provide, is there any preferred vendors that you would recommend on the cyber insurance?
No, I don't have one specific company I recommend. But typically, whoever you're using for your EO insurance, most EO companies are now offering cyber as well. So you just add it as another line of policy. Okay? And by the way, yeah. Thank you there. And by the way, I'll stick around for more questions, but I know some of you guys got to go to the next things. But by the way, in the app, not only can you get the handout if you want it, but also be sure to please rate the session if you liked it. All right? Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.